Maybe one day you'll make it big and you'll be able to sell your entire back catalog at a very high price. The reality for most crowdfunders like myself is you're going to want to keep those print runs a little bit low so that you're not getting buried in your unsold comics. Hello and welcome to Pesto Comics. Today is the entry for October 11th, 2025. Print run math. Why printing 500 copies of your comic might be better than 5,000. Welcome back. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Adriano. I'm a comic book writer, publisher, crowdfunder, short story anthology editor, and an author of a few novels and novellas that'll be available on Kickstarter and BackerKit next year. We just had our biggest success with the sequel to Naked Kaiju Woman, Naked Kaiju Woman 2, which brought in over 730 backers on Kickstarter and counting thanks to late pledges. With such a big campaign, that'll be shipping over 970 comics to 17 different countries around the world, a lot of thought has to be put into print runs. Today, I'm going to throw a whole bunch of numbers at you as we try to figure print runs out completely. And for paid subscribers, I'm going to go in depth and tell you exactly what I've spent with each campaign. Before I do, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, you can find that at Pesto Comics. And if you haven't subscribed to the Substack, you can find that at pestocomics.substack.com. It's the best way to stay on top of everything coming from Pesto Comics, as I share all the behind the scenes and not just my messy background. With that, let's look at some print run math. My first few books, I used a printer that is technically local, but technically a bit of an aggregator. It's called Mix'em. They do some excellent product. There's a few advantages to using them. And what we're going to use today is you can find out exactly what you will be paying before you ever put in an order. No emailing for quotes or any guesswork. Everything's done live on their website. So with that, let's go to Mix'em's website and we'll do some quick print run math together. So being Canadian, I'm going to take you to the Canadian version of the site. So I will say with Mix'em, the print quality they deliver is absolutely off the charts. It's really great comics. Every time I have somebody coming by my table, they always comment on how good the paper quality is, how great it actually turns out. That said, it's not all perfect. Some of the costs are a little higher than I've seen with other printers, and I've actually since moved from Mix'em to another printer myself. However, they have one tool that is absolutely invaluable, and that is their ability to calculate print costs live on screen on their website. So let's do that together. So we're on the comic book printing page, and if we scroll down, we can see here that it gives you some default specs, one of which is a little bit misleading. As you can see this price, and you think, wow, for 100 comics, it's only $183. That's a little bit misleading because one, it doesn't include a cover, and it's only 8 pages. Typically, I'm doing my comics at 24 to 32 pages, but let's look at what it would be for a 24-page comic with a 4-page cover. So that's interior and exterior. I've also been doing self-cover, so we're going to make the paperweights the same. So that's 80 pounds for inside and outside. That's effectively a self-cover. It means you're using the same paper inside and out. The more reasonable way to do it would actually be to shut off the cover and just have 28 pages. But what you want is a little bit of the coating, the lamination that happens on the cover on the outside. It just allows for a little more protection and it makes it just a smidge thicker. So it does feel like a cover while still feeling like a floppy book. So when you add it all together, excluding shipping and taxes, of course, you're looking at about $4.88 per issue when you order 100. Not too bad for a 24-page full color book, of course. So what happens when we 10x that? Right now we're doing digital printing. It's always a little more expensive, and some people would argue that the quality is not as high. I personally have never seen a problem. Digital printing has come so far nowadays that, frankly, if you didn't know any better, I'm not sure you could tell the difference. Some might, but I think majority of people wouldn't. But let's say that you wanted to get to an offset printing level. Would 1,000 be enough? And here you can see it's switched to offset printing, high quality offset. And the cost of the comic has gone down by over $1.50 each now. So you can see why people get tempted. People like myself get tempted to really overdo the print run. The question is, are you ever going to sell 1,000 copies of one issue of a book? One of the challenges with Mix'em in particular is that when you do get to offset printing, you can do variant covers, but then it becomes a bespoke quote. So this quote that you're seeing here is not the one that they're going to give you if you want to do variant covers. If you're just doing one book with one cover, this is the price you will get. That's accurate, that's clear. But if you're making any changes, and that includes different covers, then this might go up a little bit more. And then it becomes a question of how many copies did you actually sell on Kickstarter? Did you sell enough? Did you actually do enough to warrant such a big print run? I mentioned off the top that I had a career best campaign with Naked Kaiju Woman 2, and that I'll be sending under 1,000 copies, 970 copies of books, and not all one book either. So multiple copies of Naked Kaiju Woman 2, but also multiple of Naked Kaiju Woman 1, Crazy Latte Thing Called Love, Unlimited Udo, Stay Cool, the whole catalog. So with that in mind, doing a print run of 1,000 may be a bit overkill. So let's cut it right down the middle. Let's say you go to 500. This is likely going to push you back into digital printing as it did. And you can see now that the costs are better than they were when you were printing 100, but they're still about $410 per issue, which is not the big savings you were getting with offset. And even then, 500 is still a high number. You're doing very well if you're selling that much of one book off of one campaign. So maybe you live somewhere that you have a ton of storage and this isn't a problem for you. You have a giant garage and you could just keep adding box after box there without ever really having to worry about it. If that's you, you can ignore all of this. Order to your heart's content and be ready to store them for as long as you need to. Maybe one day you'll make it big and you'll be able to sell your entire back catalog at a very high price. The reality for most crowdfunders like myself is you're going to want to keep those print runs a little bit low so that you're not getting buried in your unsold comics. Something I'd keep in mind is a low per unit price doesn't necessarily mean more profit for indie creators. Breaking even isn't a guarantee, and if you're not careful, overprinting can push you over the edge into a loss in your campaign. So there's a formula you can use to find out exactly what you need to do to break even. What you want to do is divide the total cost per printing by the profit per book. The profit is going to be your cover price minus the production cost, and then you'll know exactly how many copies you need to break even on printing. This obviously doesn't include production, shipping, or advertising, and if you're like me, that's where most of your budget is going to end up going. If you're an artist who draws your own books, you're already way ahead of the game, and you can play with these numbers quite a bit more. But if you're hiring artists, colorists, letterers, editors, that's all going to add to the cost of this book. So the break even is strictly speaking about printing in this scenario. So my recommendation for print runs, start small. Run your Kickstarter and then add 10 to 15% to whatever was ordered during the campaign to your print run. If you need more, you can always print more later. Yes, you're not maximizing profits. This is a more conservative approach, but it also means that you're not going to be surrounded by unsold books. It also gives you an opportunity to fix nagging issues that you will find after you do your first print run. I send my comics as close to perfect as possible, and yet I always find something I wish I had fixed before I sent it to the printer. If you are stuck with hundreds of copies of your book, you will never get an opportunity to fix that. If Marvel and DC can do the exact same thing, it's good enough for you as an indie creator. Plus, if you ever plan on collecting books into a trade, good luck in getting rid of those floppies. Now, if you want to see the specifics about mistakes I've made during print runs, join the paid tier on Substack. Not only will you unlock this post, where I go into the specifics of everything we've printed, but it includes a number of other posts, including deep dives into a bunch of comics we've done, and dollar-to-dollar breakdowns of every campaign, and more. I keep the Substack as cheap as possible, so if you're joining on the annual plan, there's not a better deal out there. So I highly recommend checking it out. Go to pestocomics.substack.com if you want to see the rest of this. If not, I'll be back on Wednesday. I'm going to talk about the return of 90s style marketing tactics like blind bags, variant covers, and more, and a little preview. I'm not necessarily happy about it. All that said, I thank you for being here. If this is where we leave you, have a good one. And if you're a paid subscriber, see you on the other side.